Universal Credit is a new service that helps ensure you're better off in work than you are on benefits. It's for people who are out of work or on a low income and is designed to make work pay. It replaces 6 benefits, including job seekers allowance, tax credits and housing benefit, with one single monthly payment. Universal Credit is usually claimed online. Your job centre can tell you about local places where you can access the internet for free. Universal Credit tops up your earnings when you start work or increase your hours. Your payment reduces gradually as you earn more, so you won't lose all your benefits at once. You can work more than 16 hours a week and still receive Universal Credit. And if you're a parent, you'll be able to get help towards childcare costs, even if you work for just a few hours a week. Your claim continues when you start work, so you won't need to reapply if your circumstances change. To get Universal Credit, you'll need to accept a claimant commitment that sets out the steps you'll take to find a job. And if you're able to work, you'll be expected to look for work on a full-time basis. You'll get expert help from a coach at your job centre. But if you don't do what you've agreed, your benefits may be cut. If you're unable to work, Universal Credit will support you. If you're already claiming benefits, you don't need to do anything now. You'll be told what Universal Credit means for you in good time. You can prepare for the change by going online to www.gov.uk/Universal Credit.
For joining us. Now, the government scheme to roll 6 welfare benefits into one single payment, called Universal Credit, aims to encourage claimants to move back into work. But it's been fraught with problems. And now ministers must decide whether to roll out Universal Credit more widely. Charities have called for it to be paused, saying it's leaving vulnerable people in debt and rent arrears. Our reporter, Emma Vardy, went to visit one man who has been facing difficulties.
I had no choice in the matter. I was told I had to go on to Universal Credit. They said it could take up to 6 weeks to process. I didn't know what I was going to do in that 6 weeks.
Robert Smith is one of thousands of people who've been left with a 6-week gap in their benefits payments after being moved on to Universal Credit.
I've got into arrears. No, I was living on nothing. I had no benefits too. I didn't know what benefit I was claiming. It just sort of spiraled out of control. The worry, the stress. I'm not knowing whether I'm going to lose my home.
For Robert, family and friends stepped in to help make ends meet. And he got help from Citizens Advice, who say they're seeing this happen all too often.
Universal Credit's designed in a way that people have to wait 6 weeks for their income. If you've not got any savings, if you've just had a week's wages, or you're in debt already, that leaves people really struggling to make ends meet, to pay the bills, and they are getting behind.
The government is due to begin a major rollout of the scheme soon, but Citizens Advice are calling for ministers to hold off.
It's due to accelerate rapidly, so we're going from 5 job centres a month to 50 job centres a month. Now, we think there are serious flaws that need fixing before they do accelerate that rollout.
The government says Universal Credit replicates the world of work. Claimants must pay out rent themselves, in contrast to housing benefit, which was paid direct to landlords. The payments reduce gradually as earnings increase when claimants get back into work. But Citizens Advice says 1 in 5 claimants are not getting their payments on time. The government's plan is for all benefit claimants to be moved onto Universal Credit by March 2022. The Department for Work and Pensions says Universal Credit is helping to get more people into work for longer than the old benefit system. Unfortunately, no one from the government was available to talk to us directly about this today, but they did email us a statement to say that they found the majority of people are comfortable in managing their payments and that for anybody else, there is support available.
Take this example. If you're a single mum with 2 kids working 16 hours, if you tried to work 1 hour more, you'd get 4% of all the money that you earn. The rest of it is taken back in taxes and benefit withdrawal. Under the new system, you get 37 pence for every pound that you earn. So it's really changing lives out there. Yes, there are issues in terms of implementation, and DWP needs to look at those, it needs to fix them, but let's not say the policy doesn't work, because all the evidence shows that it does.
MPs on the Work and Pensions Select Committee have raised concerns after hearing evidence from council leaders, food banks and charities around the country.
If I was advisor of the Secretary of State, I would say, for the sake of claimants and for your political future, I would call a halt to the rollout until we've managed to get on top, if we can, of all these difficulties which all members of Parliament are now getting experience of from their constituents.
Robert's universal credit payments have now begun to kick in, but that initial delay means he'll still be paying off the arrears he accrued for some time to come.
Well, we're joined now from Cambridge by the Conservative MP Heidi Allen, who sits on the Work and Pensions Select Committee. Thanks for joining us, Heidi. So,
no problem.
It seems to me that the problem that people are highlighting isn't the principle of universal credit, but a pretty serious flaw, a 6-week delay, or even up to 12 or 13 weeks before people get their first payment. I mean, what sort of problems are people suffering in that intervening period?
Well, the difficulty is, it's universal credit is a fabulous system, and when we've ironed out, it's a massive IT change. That's probably at the heart of some of its issues. When we've ironed that out, it really is going to continue to change lives. The difficulty, it's a cultural shift. People have gone from being either having no savings or perhaps being weekly paid to there being a delay in the system because it's not quite ready to roll out at speed, in my opinion. And then it's 6 weeks to wait as well. So there are a few things that are difficult to get people, behaviourally to change, and also the system implementation issues, which for me mean we just need to slow down a little bit and get it right.
Do you think there should be a full pause? I mean, for example, Citizens Advice have surveyed 800 people. 39% had to wait more than 6 weeks. 30% have to make more than 10 calls to the helpline and wait more than 30 minutes to get through.
Yeah, there are some difficulties. We are tantalisingly close to an incredibly revolutionary system change, and I just want us to get it right. We've got some new data that's come out today, which I know the Secretary of State is looking closely at, and that will determine to him, and I know he's looking at it closely, whether or not he wants to push that button on accelerating the rollout. But still, even now, reflecting on sort of the last year, 14% of claimants and new claimants are still not getting any money on time, and 23% are only getting a partial payment on time. And these are people we're talking about with little or no savings at all. They're not people that can turn to their savings account or even to family members sometimes. This is the only income they will have, or certainly enough to top up on top of their working income to make ends meet. We're so close to getting it right, we really just need to pause that rollout.
OK, Heidi, stay with us. And those are really worrying statistics, aren't they?
They are. I mean, it is, as Heidi Allen was reflecting, a very complex system change. And you either decide that you want a fundamental system in which you have one benefit, because we did have overlapping benefits and we did have all sorts of, funny kinks in the system. One thing that the system is very bad at in Britain, in fact it's very difficult across welfare reform, is tapering things off and bringing new things on stream. Partly IT difficulties, but I'd point to something else. You've got to have consistency at the top in the department. And you had that big falling out, if you remember, that Ian Duncan Smith, who drove this as an idea, he wasn't absolutely practically inclined, and there was a lot of chaos in the department, but he was at the cabinet table, he was speaking for it. In a sense, he had skin in the game. And what I worry about is that this kind of welfare change becomes something that the wonks know about and care about, and that ministers are perhaps, they're not day to day put on the spot about it. And we need much more consistency. All big state reform suffers when you chop people in and out, and cabinet reshuffles are sort of death to these things.
And, Heidi, that is a good point. David Gauke is the 4th Conservative Welfare Secretary in less than 2 years. And Ian Duncan Smith, of course, he was very wedded to this, but he also complained when he left that he didn't want to see £3 billion taken out of it as part of austerity. Universal credit, a good idea that doesn't work in these times?
No, it does work. I mean, there are lots of different things that, if I was Secretary of State, I would tweak or change with it. What really broke Ian's heart were the work allowances and the taper rates, i.e. the amount of money that people keep before it's taken away from them. And he and I and many MPs campaigned last year, and we were successful in getting £1 billion put back into it in the budget or the autumn statement last year. But, whether, times fiscally are still tough, whether that's a possibility, perhaps not, but what we can do is make sure that the system works and that people are getting their money on time. That's the very least we can do, even in difficult financial times as we're in, and that's what we're asking for. I don't actually believe this will cost the government very much if we just pause. This is an IT system, and we need to look, I think, also at how quickly people have access to money. The 6-week wait is an issue. We are seeing more people having access to advance payments, so after a couple of weeks, which on one hand is great. That figure today shows it's gone up from 24% to 47%, which means means that work coaches and job centres are really listening to the needs of their clients, which is great. But the fact that so many people need it tells me that that 6-week wait just doesn't work. So whether we need to look again at bringing that time back so people can access their money more quickly.
And Toby, one of the big problems is that this is about to roll out to 55 new areas. Do you think that it should be paused?
No, I don't. I mean, if you look at the welfare reforms that have taken place since 2010, I think broadly speaking they've been very successful. One of the objects, after all, was to get more people into work, and the latest unemployment figures show that the unemployment rate is down to 4.3%, which is the lowest it's been since 1975.
But that's the principle, of course. What about these teething problems?
I think, hopefully, David Gauke can make sure that they don't disrupt the rollout, and I hope he doesn't pause it today. I think we need it.
OK, Heidi, I think you kind of maybe revealed something there, that David Gauke was thinking very seriously about this. Have you had a conversation with him? Do you think he is listening to people's concerns?
I do think he's listening, I really do. I'm personally quite worried about it. I've been on the Work and Pensions Select Committee since 15, and I've seen universal credit grow and improve and get better. But I spoke to him earlier in the week, and he is listening, and I know he's going to analyse the data that's coming out now and in the coming weeks very, very closely. I think the other thing that we need to bear in mind that, yes, universal credit does work, and absolutely right, Toby, more people are in work than ever before, but the bulk of the system that's been rolled out so far, what they call their live system, is for single, uncomplicated claimants. So claimants that are well, they have no children, no caring responsibilities. That's a very, very simple system. What the rollout is going to potentially expand into now, October going forwards, is what I call the all-singing, dancing system. So people with caring responsibilities, disabilities, housing benefit. It's a much, much more complex system that has only in, I think, 100 of our job centres so far, so we don't have much experience. We're still testing, building it live. We're not ready to roll that out, in my opinion.
And Heidi, do you agree with your committee chair, Frank Field, that these problems could result in a human and political catastrophe?
Let's just say it will be an unnecessary own goal, and I don't think we need to put ourselves at that risk.
But we have been talking about these problems for quite a long time, and the government hasn't paused it so far.
No, and to be fair, because the majority of the rollout, as I say, has been for single and complicated claimants, so we haven't seen the teething problems, if you like. It's this new, complete system where people, more complex family units could be put onto the system. That's where we're going to see the issues ramp up in significant volume.
Thanks so much, Heidi. Thanks for joining us.
Now, more than £1 million in rent arrears are owed by tenants in Newcastle, according to evidence given to a Commons Select Committee this week. And it's the government's new benefit system that's being blamed. Universal credit is intended to make the payment of benefits more simple and streamlined, but claimants have to wait 6 weeks to receive it. Well, that and other problems have prompted Labour MPs in Gateshead and County Durham and beyond to demand that the rollout of universal credit should be halted. Fergus Hewson reports.
To make a claim, you'll need to complete your to-do list.
Universal credit is on the way. There's even online adverts alerting people how they can claim. It's a way of wrapping up a range of benefits into one payment, and it's gradually being rolled out across the region and the country. But before it's even arrived in some places, it's causing anxiety among some people who'll have to claim it.
The main concern is the length of time while you're changing over the benefits. So I could be without money at all for 3 months possibly. So, and I'm a single parent with a child. That would affect me a lot and cause an awful lot of stress.
Those who claim universal credit have to wait at least 6 or 7 weeks before any payment is made, sometimes longer. With that in mind, this County Durham food bank is gearing up for its imminent arrival.
Well, there's been a 16% increase in food bank usage where universal credit has been rolled out. Here in County Durham we're expecting an influx of an extra 10 to 12%, and that puts real pressure on the food banks.
Universal credit's being introduced across parts of County Durham and Gateshead in the run-up to Christmas. And such is the concern about that charities and other organisations have met in this room here today to discuss how they'll help people who'll have to claim the new benefit.
Rolling out a system of benefits which we know will increase people's indebtedness as they claim it, and a period of time when people are really strapped for cash just compounds and multiplies the problem. So it does seem particularly inopportune that it's been rolled out at this time of the year.
So are those fears about the introduction of universal credit well-founded, or are teething problems to be expected?
Well, I think inevitably you're going to find that there are glitches as a new system is introduced, particularly such a hugely important one. And I think the government has addressed it by enabling people to get advances on benefits where they can't wait until the end of that number of weeks, and also to provide budgeting advice, because I think part of the flaws of the old system is that people have got used to not having to budget, and we all have to be able to live within our means.
Universal credit was introduced across Newcastle earlier this year, one of the first areas in the country where this happened. But that led to more than 1,000 council tenants falling into rent arrears and many people having to rely on food banks while they waited for a payment. At the time, the City Council said that universal credit had put some vulnerable residents at risk of destitution and homelessness. So has the government learned from Newcastle's experience?
So universal credit I have no issue with. The way it's being implemented I absolutely do, because it's causing untold misery to many of my constituents in Newcastle, and if they roll it out without ironing out these issues, but also without dealing with that fundamental problem of embedding debt into our universal credit system, then it's going to roll out misery.
The Department for Work and Pensions says universal credit is helping to ease people's transition into employment, and those on it are moving into work faster and staying in work longer. It added that financial help is available for people waiting to have claims processed.
Fergus Houston reporting. Simon Clark, whatever the merits of universal credit, all the evidence shows at the moment that all is not well with the rollout. These increased levels of debt. It's madness to accelerate it, pause it and solve the existing problems.
I think it's important to start by looking at what universal credit is intended to do, which is to say it's to make the transition to work easier and to help people get, to make the most of the opportunities that are available to them. And we've seen in new statistics published today that if you're 4% more likely to find work within 6 months if you're on universal credit compared to the old JSA system. So it does, as a system, deliver. In terms of the concerns that are being raised in these reports, we're seeing progress now in ironing out the very glitches which we're talking about. So the new landlord's portal, which is designed to address the problem with rent, is coming on stream next month. We heard from Judith Wallace in that report about the fact that there are advance payments.
Why not let that bed down? I mean, I'll give you another figure if you want to bandy figures. People are 14% more likely to have problems with debts on rent and council tax if they're on universal credit. And that's real hardship.
No, absolutely. No one denies that. But the point is that we are now seeing progress in addressing exactly those points. So that we talk about the fact that advances are available, we need to get that message out. Okay. So 30% of people are now getting advance payments, and 76% of people are now getting their first payment fully on time.
OK. Laura Pidcock, despite the problems, there is evidence, as Simon Clark says, that people moved on to universal credit are more likely to look for work, more likely to find work, more likely to stay in work. And that's the ultimate answer, getting people off benefits, isn't it?
But what Simon's not telling you, and the system isn't telling you, is that universal credit will also apply to those people who are in work and receiving tax credits in various forms. What is also not being talked about. You know, there was an acceptance that you have to wait. What that acceptance means is that people will be without money for 6 to 7 weeks at best. That's not a delay, that is designed into the system. So that wait, you know, a first week to make the application, a 4-week assessment period, and then a week to be paid, all that time that person is accumulating rent debt, and that puts strain on
which is why Simon Clark says
associations.
these advance payments are there, and there's greater take-up.
But again, you know, the Citizens Advice Bureau said that only 10% of people who claimed universal credit knew about these advance payments, and what is worse, you have to pay those advance payments back within 3 months in £50 chunks.
Now up to 9 months.
And that is absolutely unrealistic for people who are in debt. And just to say as well, a lot of these issues are being rolled out. The Justice Select Committee, the DWP Select Committee met this week, and all of the professionals were unanimous in saying that this has to be paused.
OK, Simon Clark, I mean, the evidence in Parliament this week, indeed heard by that committee, was damning. Tenants on universal credit in Newcastle owing more than £1 million in rent arrears. Whatever the intentions, this benefit is a failure if it's leaving people in debt.
This benefit is a success if it's getting more people into work for longer, earning more. And It's about the fact that, you know, people in work are on it. Well, that's precisely the point, if you like, that it's designed to remove some of the perverse incentives that used to exist when you had a cluster of separate benefits.
So you're not accepting that almost any problems here?
No, look, this is a learning process. That's why this has been rolled out over a period of years.
It's being learned by the people who are claiming these benefits. They're the people who are suffering.
There is no way of rolling out a new system except by piloting it. That will be common practice. What we're seeing is real progress.
Richard, I must come in here because, it's not anymore a trial. From October, there will be 50 job centres a month. It's an aggressive rollout, whilst there are still literally hundreds of questions that need to be answered by the DWP.
Shouldn't Labour be a bit braver here, though, rather than just saying, oh, just pause it? Actually say this benefit hasn't worked. Whatever its intentions, it's so complicated, it's so difficult, it hasn't worked. End it, scrap it.
I think it is brave saying halt this really
braver to say, look, it's been a failure,
expensive system. There are things that could be done. The Labour Party is not against benefit simplification. It's right as a convoluted system that it isn't understandable to anyone, not least the experts.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there, I'm afraid.